Hey, everybody, Off the Mic Sports Network here. Another edition of Off the Top Rope. So, want to talk about the Hurt Syndicate. You know, they hurt people, right? They hurt people. The question is, are they not only hurting people, but are they also hurting AEW? Because there was a very, very interesting report from Fightful Select that came out on Tuesday that basically stated, man, there's apparently some frustration within the company surrounding, you know, the Hurt Syndicate, MVP, Bobby Lashley, and Shelton Benjamin. Apparently, MVP has ruffled some feathers and rubbed some people the wrong way. Um, apparently MVP did not like Speedball Mike Bailey and was like, hey, we're not losing to jet speed. He's thrown his weight around. Apparently, there was animosity over a pitch that FTR should beat the Hurt Syndicate. Um, you know, a lot of MVP has been, kind of burying some of the other tag teams. And I know a lot of people, and I've even voiced my frustration. I was like, man, this tag team division has not been good. And some of it has to do with, the way the Hurt Syndicate has been, handled in WWE or not in AEW. MVP's preferences, apparently, according to this report, the Gates of Agony, the Outrunners, and Private Party. Apparently, Swerve Strickland and Will Ospreay were potentially rumored to be challengers, but obviously Will Ospreay's health situation has become a big issue in AEW. Here's hoping that Will gets healthy. Also, the report said there is said to be levels of frustration from the locker room that the Hurt Syndicate that they have become heels that do cool moves, beat up everyone, and give fans high fives on the way out. Because everybody's wondering, man, they're over. Why are they still acting like heels? It doesn't make any sense. So like this is an odd situation because apparently they've already started to plant seeds that the MJF Hurt Syndicate arc is kind of coming to an end. Which feels abrupt considering, MGF literally just joined them a few months ago and was spending all the amounts of time to just try and get in their good graces. Now, all of a sudden, they're just not fans of him. It was sort of odd. So hearing some of these things about, where the Hurt Syndicate is and, just thinking about where this tag team division is, it makes you wonder back to the whole conversations about creative control. And to me, like, this may not be like creative control. And I know JD from New York and some other content creators have talked about this, but the fact that this is getting out there right now to talk about this team, where I honestly think that FTR is going to win this tag team tournament that they're doing and ultimately face the Hurt Syndicate in London at Forbidden Door and then just beat them. Like that's ultimately where I think this whole thing is going. And you think to yourself, since, Bobby Lashley, Shelton Benjamin, and MVP got to this company, what have they really done to benefit AEW? And this leads me into my next point of like, listen, I'm not necessarily going to shit on the Hurt Syndicate. I will say this, that, you've got to understand the business to elevate it. And I think this has been a common problem in AEW where a lot of these, higher profile, bigger names that come in from the outside and come into this place and basically are given all these freedoms to do whatever the fuck they want. People don't get over, divisions start to get watered down. And, yes, the Hurt Syndicate's over. People love them. They hurt people. Like they're chanting their names. It's a catchy thing. Like Lashley's a fucking badass. Shelton Benjamin, it's great to see him in his great physical condition as he is near 50 years old. MVP is as good as there is on the microphone, and he's a great fucking manager. But what good has this done for AEW? And the fact that this is getting out is very interesting to me, considering all of the conversations we had going into All In surrounding Mercedes Moné and creative control. And then we cycled through all of these different people. This is another example of Tony Khan not having control of his company. Because if he did have control of his company, then you wouldn't be having these back and forths of like, oh, hey, we don't want to lose to this team. Like, that being said, I think Jet Speed losing to the Hurt Syndicate is fucking ridiculous. I like Kevin Knight and Mike Bailey, but the Hurt Syndicate are like, those are two guys who are like 250-pound, fucking fucking animals. Like, they're fucking gonna they like I said, they hurt people. So I don't know where this is all going, but it makes you wonder, is the Hurt Syndicate the latest example of, something that's like, hey, they hurt people. Are they hurting AEW? And in that respect, this goes back to, I understand why AEW is more of a draw for a lot of talent who isn't able to work in WWE or doesn't have creative or doesn't have the ability to get on television. They've got more say in what they can do in AEW. The problem is Tony Khan doesn't have a backbone to tell these people fucking no. And this is another example of that. Like, if you're going to bring these people in and make them be your toys, you have got to have at least like some semblance of a team surrounding you and some sort of an infrastructure to basically say, this is what we want to do, and this is how we're going to get there. And the problem is, I don't think Tony Khan has the determination or desire, frankly, to, tell these people no and say, hey, this is our plan. He's just willing to let the inmates run the asylum and basically say, hey, we're going to do this, this, and this. We're going to, hey, if he has his own ideas, I think, he's going to listen to more of the talent, which, hey, in some respect is actually very good, but you've seen it go the other way, and why I think AEW as a whole is kind of like, fallen by the wayside a little bit. When you give talent so much control over what they want to do, it leads to situations like this, where, you've got talent where they're only benefiting themselves, and it's leading to things getting out of control. And we saw how that really affected the perception of Mercedes Moné. And I got beaten to bits about it. Like, Mercedes has got to own some of this too. But I think she ultimately, a lot of this is like, hey, she built herself up. I mean, yeah, it sucked for the women's division, but hey, she put over the standard of that division in Toni Storm. And that was a good thing. Now, who ultimately gets the payoff from that is yet to be determined. With the Hurt Syndicate, what's going to happen here? Is FTR going to beat them? I think they will. That's the right decision. But is the Hurt Syndicate going to be around in AEW for much longer? Like, they're already blowing away a major storyline that they were trying to tell with one of their top stars. And that's immediately been done. And then you think about this run and what it's done to one of the staples of this company, the tag team division. Nobody's getting over. They're just doing a whole bunch of cool moves. It's leading to frustration in the back. MVP's ruffling feathers back there. It's creating some dissension, and that's not good for business. So we'll see where this whole thing winds down. But I found this to be a very fascinating bit of information that got released in this report. And we'll see where it goes ultimately moving forward with the Hurt Syndicate, because, I like all three of these guys. They're all up there in age. But it also leads me to the point of like, hey, a lot of these veteran level talents are getting more creative say to do what they want, but it's leading to the detriment of the product. So in that respect, it completely falls at the feet of Tony Khan. And he's got to have some sort of backbone to basically say, hey, listen, we've got to have this make sense, and we've got to have people look good coming out of this. And the way this has gone across, this is why this company's where it's at, is because, they, in like some of the lower tier stuff, or like even with the women's division, they're just having these problems when it comes to creative control. And when you give so many people that type of power, it's going to lead to disagreements, and it's going to lead to some funky decision making. And that's what's happened with these guys. So anyway, thanks so much for watching. I'll see you guys soon. Bye.